Leave anything for us?
A good supply of body bags.
And welcome to the Movie Morgue, where we fill out toe tags for cinema's body bags. I'm Josh, your movie examiner, and today we are dissecting Drive from 2011, directed by Nicolas Refn. Drive is based on a novel of the same name written by James Salas and a screenplay written by Hossein Amani.
The first time I read the novel, it was such a sort of rare book to get sent, from a studio, because it was very short, it was very dark. That was a tiny part of it. There was so much more character stuff around that.
Drive revolves around a character only referred to as Driver.
Driver is just a man who's pure at heart, turns himself into a superhero to protect the innocent for all the right reasons.
How about this? Shut your mouth, or I'll kick your teeth down your throat and I'll shut it for you.
He was a man with a code, and the book was about the difference between legal and illegal and right and wrong.
An anti-hero reminiscent of The Man with No Name or Steve McQueen's Bullet.
Some of the classics of cinema, and it felt like something we had kind of left behind.
Drive was the Hollywood breakout hit for Danish filmmaker Nicolas Refn.
I devised this movie like a grim fairy tale, was that they start like champagne innocence and then they end up very dark and disturbing. But there's always a moral code that everything is right and wrong is always in place at the end.
Refn had earned critical praise for his film Bronson, starring Tom Hardy, which, if you haven't seen, do yourself a favor. It might be Tom Hardy's best on-screen performance.
Right. Wrong, Mr. Peterson.
Heavily influenced by noir films such as Taxi Driver, Thief, and the futuristic and neon-heavy Blade Runner, Drive popularized the modern neon noir subgenre. Focusing on a morally ambiguous anti-hero, ultra-violence, and typically set in a grim urban landscape. But the biggest influence on Drive might surprise you.
Well, I would probably say the biggest inspiration was Pretty Woman.
Because of...
Yeah.
Our driver would be played by Ryan Gosling.
In the end, it really comes down to Ryan Gosling, who had the power to choose the director and protect the director.
After standout performances in The Notebook and Lars and the Real Girl, 2011 was his year, starring in Drive, The Ides of March with George Clooney, and Crazy Stupid Love.
You gotta take control of your manhood, pal. Oh, I'm sorry, is this bothering you?
And for an independent production, they managed to attract one hell of a cast.
So everywhere you turn, there's a compelling character, and they're all acting with a consistent tone, thanks to the direction of Nicolas.
A mechanic and Hollywood stunt car driver by day and criminal chauffeur by night, Driver works with a strict set of rules.
I don't sit in while you're running it down. I don't carry a gun. I drive.
And is truly gifted behind the wheel of a car.
You put this kid behind the wheel, there's nothing he can't do.
After developing a relationship with his new neighbor and her son, he has to slam on brakes when the boy's father is released from prison. Driver discovers the ex-con has some unpaid fines that will result in violence towards him and his family if not paid. Driver offers his services as a means to an end.
When you get your money, his debt's paid.
But comes to a fork in the road that forces him down a lane paved with blood, money, and betrayal.
Whose money do I have?
All leading towards a destination much closer to home than he could have ever imagined.
How was I supposed to know? Everything led to Nino!
Any dreams you have, or plans, or hopes for your future, I think you're gonna have to put that on hold.
But just how many bodies were driven to the morgue in Drive? Drop your guess in the comments below, and now let's bag them and tag them.
I'll order up some body bags.
We open up the movie to Driver conducting business and giving his customer his terms of service.
You give me a time and a place, I give you a 5-minute window.
Toronto is kicking LA's ass at halftime, and he's got his bags packed and a route mapped out.
Anything happens in that 5 minutes and I'm yours, no matter what.
He swings by his day job and picks up a souped-up Chevy Impala, the most popular car in the state of California.
No one will be looking at you.
Are you kidding me? Look at this fucking guy. Have you seen him? Everybody's getting a good look at this dude.
Fuck! Seriously? It's like you're photoshopped.
Driver parks and watches tonight's customers do their thing as their 5 minutes begin. He checks the police scanner, then checks the score of the Clippers game. You can feel the tension build while Tick of the Clock by the Chromatics plays in the background. They enter the car just in time as Driver begins to flee the scene slowly, not to bring any attention to himself. We then watch as he navigates the streets like a diver in an ocean full of sharks, hiding in the shadows and right under their noses. Refn wanted to use the driving to show drivers' evolution throughout the film.
So the first car chase, the man is in control, and we see everything from his point of view of what an expert he is. He can basically diverse himself from any kind of danger and only seen from his point of view, his perspective.
He's eventually spotted by an eye in the sky and then goes on the offensive, making his way under an overpass and then throws his thing down, flips it, and reverses it. The chopper is called away and he eases back into traffic, but is spotted at a traffic light.
We meet Driver, he's making a getaway from a crime with the kind of cleverness and expertise that's kind of exciting. A knowledge of the streets, a knowledge of the psychology of cops, a knowledge of cars, of the city of LA, and where you're literally inside the car for the whole chase, experiencing it as he is, you get such a sense of how talented this driver is, how intuitive this character is.
Driver threads his way through the streets, eventually ending up downtown at the Staples Center right as the Clippers game ends. He pulls into the parking deck and walks away from the car, blending into the crowd, and walks right past the unsuspecting police. And this is by far one of my favorite opening scenes of all time. We get a needle drop of Kavinsky's Night Call as the opening credits begin. We watch Sebastian drive around La La Land. He moves into his new apartment and then heads back out into the city of stars. While having a great soundtrack, the film is scored by Cliff Martinez, who was the drummer for Red Hot Chili Peppers before Chad Smith, and has also scored over 40 films, including Pump Up the Volume, Contagion, and Spring Breakers. He'd also score Refn's next two films, Only God Forgives and The Neon Demon. After a long night of getaway driving, he meets a promising young woman in the elevator who lives 2 doors down from him. Whoa, this dude's a cop? Holy shit! Nah, I'm just joshing you. He's dressed as one for the stunt driving he's doing today. His boss Shannon gives him a pep talk and tells him he's got some more pay for him for the day's work.
And I got you 500 more, huh?
I love how Driver already knows what Shannon's gonna say before he says it. Wait for it.
Of course, we split that.
There it is. Shannon is played by the man known as Heisenberg, Bryan Cranston.
Run.
He just kind of yaps a lot, which is a nice contrast to Driver's mostly silent approach to things.
Driver gets into character, does his stunt, and then goes grocery shopping. He runs into his neighbor Irene and her son, and they're having some car trouble. So he gives them a lift home, carries their groceries up like a gentleman, and develops a relationship with the boy Benicio.
Scary.
Irene offers him a drink and finds out he's new to the building, but not to LA. Driver sees a picture on the wall and she tells him that's Benicio's father. He's currently being detained by the First Order. He tells her he drives for the movies.
Is that dangerous?
And he's like, well, it's only part-time. I also work at a garage.
He senses, I think, that this could take him out of his comfort zone and this could be a threat to the box he's created around himself.
Irene is played by Carey Mulligan, who I've already mentioned was in Promising Young Woman.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
And The Great Gatsby.
I'm certainly glad to see you again.
Meanwhile, at Nino's Pizzeria, Shannon has lunch with Bernie Rose, played by Albert Brooks.
Put out the fucking cigarette. I'm eating.
A different role for Brooks, being that he never played a gangster before.
Let's just say I've never killed anyone in a movie before.
Even though his first film was Taxi Driver, he also earned an Academy Award nomination for his role in broadcast news.
And I know funny. I'm a clownfish.
You can always hear that voice looking for Nemo in the ocean. But in this movie, he is the one who knocks.
Gives me something that I never played before, which is a guy you really don't want to fool around with. Shut the fuck up.
Shannon wants to buy a stock race car and start working the racing circuit, since Driver is the best he's ever seen behind the wheel of a car. And he's here to ask Mr. Rose for a loan to pay for it.
$430,000.
And gets the big fuck you finger.
Oh.
His partner, Nino, walks in the door, and they just so happen to be involved with the Jewish mafia. Nino condescends to Shannon, and we get a clue as to how Shannon got that limp.
How you doing, Shannon? How's the fucking leg?
I paid my debt.
Bernie says he'll think about the car, but he wants to meet the driver first. And then sometime later, Driver gives Bernie a demonstration of his skills. Yeah, NASCAR, drive fast, turn left, woohoo! Ryan Gosling did a good bit of stunt driving himself, and was apparently quite good at it.
He was way more capable of driving on this film than we really wanted to let him do. He's a really good stunt driver. He did really well.
Shannon introduces him to Mr. Rose, and when he reaches out to shake Driver's hand, we get one of my favorite exchanges in the film.
My hands are a little dirty.
So am I.
Shannon and Bernie make a deal, and it's pretty obvious it isn't going to go well from the lingering shot. Irene has her car towed to Shannon's shop, He tells Irene the kid just showed up out of the blue asking for a job one day.
And I have been exploiting him ever since.
He volunteers Ken to give Barbie a ride home since they live in the same building. On the way, he asks if they'd like to take a little detour down the LA River. Watch out for Terminators and Transformers in there. He takes them to his place beyond the pines, a secret oasis away from the city. The kids get a little handsy in the car on the way home, and driver carries Benicio to his bedroom while Irene looks at him like he were the Great Gatsby. The two stare longingly at each other before driver says he's free for the weekend if she needs a ride anywhere. But driver and Irene's little romance is disturbed when Irene gets a heads up that her husband will be released from prison at the end of the week. That means no more hand-holding for you guys. Shannon shows off the race car that they purchased to Bernie and Nino, and Nino's not impressed.
You pay 300 fucking grand for this piece of shit?
He's more into showing off.
That is one motherfucking fine-ass pussy-mobile motherfucker. Damn!
You wouldn't be able to find pussy in a whorehouse.
Nino is played by Hellboy himself, Ron Perlman.
When I first was given the script, one never quite knew who he was, where he came from, what he did. And Nicolas was determined to put some flesh on the bones and to give this guy a past.
You're not very good at this, are you?
Little by little, Nino got more discovered and took a more prominent place in the storytelling and became easier to play.
Bernie has a little chat with Driver, tells him he used to be a movie producer, but really wasn't a fan of his productions.
Kind of like action films, sexy stuff. I thought they were shit.
Shannon was his car guy on the movies until he got mixed up with Nino's friends. Then things went south.
They broke his pelvis.
And now he has a lot invested in Driver. So if they need anything, he needs to give Bernie a call. At his welcome home party, Standard Gabriel gives a speech about second chances and toasts Irene for sticking around while he was being held captive by Kylo Ren. Driver runs into Irene in the hallway and she apologizes for all the noise.
I was gonna call the cops.
I wish you would.
Standard introduces himself and thanks Driver for helping out with his family while he was away, although he seems quite threatened by Driver. Standard's played by Oscar Isaac long before he was Poe Dameron,
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Moon Knight, or Duke Atreides, and he and Carey Mulligan would share the screen again in the Coen brothers Inside Llewyn Davis. Driver goes for some coffee and pie and runs into a past client running off at the mouth, but Driver doesn't talk business in person.
How about this? Shut your mouth.
One day, Driver comes home to see some shady tracksuit gangsters leaving the building and finds Standard beaten to a bloody pulp and Benicio scared to death hiding in the shadows. Standard explains to Driver that he owes the goons protection money from when he was in prison with interest, and they want him to rip off a pawn shop in the valley as payment. Before he leaves, Benicio shows Driver a bullet that one of the goons gave him, and he says he'll hold on to that for him. Keep it in a nice safe place. He offers his services to Standard and meets one of the tracksuit goons to give him his terms of service.
You look like your heart's at work.
Not if we understand each other.
We also meet Blanche, who will be tagging along for the ride. She's played by Christina Hendricks, well known for her role in Mad Men.
Surprise! There's an airplane here to see you!
I would say this is different from what I've been doing all year long, and a fun character just to do something completely different, and I just thought it was a fantastic script.
And she'd work with Refn again in The Neon Demon, and is also in the underrated Strangers Pray at Night.
When you get your money, his debt's paid. He's out for good. You never go near his family again. You understand?
Standard gives a toast to his family, new friend, and the future, and we end up in the pawn shop parking lot. Chop chop, you got 5 minutes.
See you in 4.
A mysterious car pulls into the lot as Blanche makes her way to the car with a bag full of cash. Standard's a few steps behind, but before he can make it to the car, a bullet comes through the window. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be much help at this point, bud. Then 3 more in his back, and Standard Gabriel becomes Deceased Gabriel, giving us our first toe tag at the 54-minute mark. Driver speeds away and the mysterious car pursues, and we get our second high-speed chase of the movie. This time we experience the chase from the outside of the car, conveying that Driver is not in control and is relying on pure instinct to get away.
In that chase, you get sort of the unexpectedness of not being prepared, not knowing the roads. He's all the way out in the valley near the desert. So he's driving on roads that are not familiar to him and has to think on his feet. And
Second car chase, it's emotionally because the sound of the engine is what actually draws you into it.
270. So he's driving backwards in the Mustang. He comes to a three-way intersection and basically throws a reverse 180, but keeps it going and stays in it and drifts the rest of the way out of the turn. It's a pretty impressive maneuver, and we wanted to get that in there. And then Nicolas wanted a crash at the end that no one had seen before. Driver does the reverse 270. This guy just can't hold the line through the turn. And the fact that we were able to put the actress in the shot and shoot directly over her shoulder and see this crash happen was cool, and it was really different, and we were really stoked on it.
They take a moment to regroup at a motel. Blanche tells Driver they were supposed to get 40 grand. But there's a fuck ton more than that in this bag. Driver goes outside to make a call, and Blanche starts acting fishy. Driver makes a call to Irene, but she's a little tied up with police at the moment. They watch a news report that states Standard acted alone and no money was stolen. And Driver's like, yeah, that's not exactly what went down. He backhands Blanche and tells her she just got a little boy's father killed, and she better start talking.
From now on, every word out of your mouth is the truth, or I'm gonna hurt you.
She tells him that the other car was supposed to hold them up and steal the cash, but she claims no one was supposed to be killed and there was not supposed to be this much money. He demands that she take him to Cook, the guy who set all this up, so she goes in the bathroom to fix her face, and Driver notices an unexpected guest at the door while Blanche gets her fucking face blown off. Holy shit! He pushes the gunman back into the bathroom, and his curtain call comes when Driver stabs him in the neck with a curtain rod. He then borrows his shotgun and blasts the guy coming in through the front door. Jesus Christ! This movie just got gruesome as hell out of nowhere. Kinda reminds me of the bathroom scene in Scarface. Back at Shannon's garage, Driver stashes the money, and Mr. White dreams of what they could do with all that cash. Shannon contacts Bernie and gets a lead on Cook, so Driver visits him at a strip club and hammers home that the goon has fucked with the wrong driver. He asks him whose money he has and tells him to get him on the phone right now. He then feeds Cook the bullet that they left for Benicio. Here, have a snack, asshole. One of the girls puts Driver on the phone with none other than Nino. Driver tells the gangster he's gonna give him a time and a place to come pick up his money.
And what do you get out of it?
Just that. Out of it.
And Nino sends this Lucius Malfoy-looking motherfucker to check this Driver fellow out. Driver goes to Irene's and comes clean about Standard as he walks her to the elevator. She has a pretty normal reaction.
And so when he comes clean and he offers her the money and says that he was involved, it's like he's not the sort of knight in shining armor or the, you know, the hero or the perfect man that she thought he was.
He's interrupted when a man gets off the elevator on the wrong floor, but Driver can smell the gangster all over this guy's gray suit, and as they're going down, Driver notices the gun under the Death Eater's jacket. Winding Refn had a particular way he wanted to portray this scene.
Say they never kissed, which is essential to any kind of love, is a kiss. And I came up with this idea, well, what if he kisses her? Because it's almost like he kisses her goodbye. He has to change himself into, or transform himself into, the superhero, the Scorpion. And this is his goodbye to her. So it has that pure romanticism of innocence, and then you combine that with extreme visual violence.
And Driver leaves an impression of his shoe in the goon's skull while Irene watches the carnage. She steps out of the lift and Driver takes one last look at her before the doors close. The kid meets Shannon in a public place and tells him the bad news. To add insult to injury, Shannon told Bernie about Irene, and that makes Driver a little upset.
How was I supposed to know? Everything like that.
He tells his friend they've got to leave town and never come back. The next day at the pizzeria, Bernie argues with Nino about the situation. Turns out Nino got word that a rival operation was trying to set up shop in town, so he set up the robbery to ensure that they had no finances for startup. The problem with that is they stole from the East Coast mob. And that's a big fucking deal because if the mob finds out they're connected, Bernie and Nino are fucked. Nino says Shannon and Driver are the only ones that can connect them to the money, and they need to be dealt with. But Bernie points out that Cook is a player in all of this too, and Nino gives him a nod, meaning Cook's done, so Bernie puts a fork in him. And for an actor who's never killed anyone in a movie before, Albert Brooks makes it look all too easy.
Now it's your turn to clean up after me.
Driver goes to the movie set to borrow his superhero mask. Meanwhile, Shannon is getting ready to leave town, and Bernie pays him a visit. He's not trying to find Nemo. He's looking for Driver.
If I don't set this straight, I'm in big trouble.
Bernie says he was excited to get into the race car business and extends his hand out to shake with Shannon. He then slices his forearm open with a straight razor and comforts him as he bleeds out.
Don't worry, that's it. It's done.
And I'll get Shannon a body bag. The gangster goes home, washes the blood from his blade, and then puts it back on display for all to see as he sits and contemplates the situation. Driver arrives at the garage to find his friend has been discarded from the game. He takes the money from the trunk of the car that Bernie was literally standing right next to and goes to Nino's pizzeria. He transforms himself into Carl Havoc to prank Nino.
You see that guy over there? Why don't you go over and take his tray? Carmine.
Too much fucking shit on me.
Okay, go over, grab that guy's tray.
There's too much fucking shit on me, I can't.
Instead, he follows Nino and stalks him on the highway, eventually running the car off the road. And while they're stopped, driver asks, "Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon?"
At this point, the driver is just going on a mission of retribution and killing. So it was all about how do you drive a car as fast as you can into another car, and what would that feel like?
Nino falls from the car, and I fucking love this shot of Driver on the hill looking down at him crawling away. There's another cool shot of him on the beach stalking Nino like he's Michael Myers. The two end up in the ocean where Driver leaves Nino in a watery grave. Driver contacts Bernie and asks if he knows the story about the scorpion and the frog.
Your friend Nino didn't make it across the river.
Which is a fable about a scorpion that can't swim, who asks a frog to help him cross the river. The frog is hesitant, afraid the scorpion will sting him. The scorpion explains that if he stings the frog, that would only doom them both. The frog finds this sensible and agrees to take the scorpion across, but before they reach the other side, the scorpion stings the frog, to which he apologizes and says, "It's just my character." Now, there are a lot of ways you can interpret that in this film. It appears that Driver is the scorpion in the literal sense, but he's also wearing a scorpion on his back. So does that make him the frog? I'd love to hear you guys' interpretations of that, so please drop your opinions in the comments below. Let's discuss a little bit.
I think this has gone on long enough.
Bernie says enough is enough, and they need to meet man to man and settle things up. Ken calls Barbie and tells her he has to go away, probably to discover the patriarchy. But getting to know her and Benicio was the best thing that ever happened to a guy like him. Driver arrives at the meetup, still a bloody mess from his journey. He sits and Bernie tells him that Irene is safe, but he can't say the same for Driver. From this point forward, he will have a target on his back.
I'm just telling you this because I want you to know the truth. But the girl is safe.
He asks the kid where the money is, and Driver tells him it's in the car. The two walk into the parking lot, and Driver pulls the bag from the trunk of his car as Bernie stabs him right in the gut. But Driver slices back, and we see in silhouette that one of them is dead. We pan up the driver's door to see Driver holding his wound, lifeless. He finally blinks back to life and drives away, leaving Bernie's body on the asphalt next to the bag of money. Irene goes over to Driver's apartment and knocks on the door, but gets no answer. And we end the movie on Driver leaving the city on a long, dark highway as credits roll. But how many bodies did we collect in Drive? Let's get out the blackboard and start the body count.
How many bodies did you find?
We collected a total of 10 body bags in Drive. I was only able to identify 6 of the victims, which left me with 4 John/Jane Does. And with a runtime of 100 minutes, that means we sent out the meat wagon every 10 minutes. I love round numbers. I'll have to give the toe tag for best cause of death to Gray Suit Guy in the elevator. Simply because this is really the first time we see Driver get his hands dirty. Or feet, actually. And I'll give the honorable mention toe tag to Blanche, because I did not see that death coming the first time I saw this movie, and boy is it a gruesome one. What was your favorite cause of death? Let me know in the comments. And that wraps up my examination of Nicolas Winding Refn's Drive. Drive premiered at Cannes Movie Festival, and Winding Refn took home the award for Best Director.
Cannes is the mecca of filmmaking. It is where you go and hang out with the film gods.
The character of Driver became an icon for all the introverted film and music students to imprint upon. You know, he's just like me, for real.
What do you think about me being the Chuck Norris of the new millennium? I think you look more like the Bruce Lee type. Thank you. You're more cool. At last, someone said it. I can't say that.
Ryan Gosling and Refn became good friends during the development, and the Goss would go on to star in his next picture, Only God Forgives.
You want to fight?
Which was not nearly as well received as Drive, and leaned way more into Stanley Kubrick, David Lynch territory. After that, he would direct The Neon Demon, which, dare I say, was maybe his most straightforward movie. He turned down an offer to direct James Bond and Spectre, and was originally attached to the film adaptation of The Equalizer, but it ultimately went to Anton Fuqua. I actually plan to cover those at some point because they're quite freaking good.
What do you see when you look at me?
I'll be back next time to examine Sisu from 2023.
He's one mean motherfucker that you do not want to mess with.
I've been Josh, your movie examiner. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you can join me next time I fill out toe tags for Cinema's Body Bags. Until then, enjoy being alive. And focus, 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 focus. Woohoo, go fast, turn left, woo! Go fast, turn left, woo! Woohoo, NASCAR good! Woohoo, NASCAR good! Woohoo, NASCAR good! Woohoo, NASCAR, drive fast, turn left, woo! Yeah, NASCAR, drive fast, turn left, woo! Yeah, NASCAR, drive fast, turn left, woohoo! And focus mainly on morally ambiguous. And focus on morally ambiguous.